Coca-Cola spends billions every year to make you feel good. But what if that feeling was the perfect disguise? Behind the red label and feel-good ads lies a trail of accusations. Disease, drought, exploitation, even bloodshed. But they've never tried to sell you a drink. They've been selling you an illusion. This is the disturbing story of how Coca-Cola became one of the most powerful brands on earth and the price humanity paid for it. From cocaine-laced tonics to political lobbying to a marketing disaster so massive it became a success. We'll peel back every layer of the Coca-Cola machine and we'll ask, is Coke still just a drink? Let's begin. In the late 1800s, American medicine was chaos. People were turning away from doctors and toward mysterious bottles, promising miracle cures. There were no regulations, no scientific backing, just bold claims about dangerous ingredients. One of the most popular tonics, Vin Mariani, a cocktail of wine and cocaine, marketed as a cure for everything if you drank 3 glasses a day. A man named John Pemberton, a Civil War veteran, nearly killed in battle, was one of its biggest fans. Doctors dosed him with morphine to ease his final hours, but he survived and traded one addiction for another. Desperate to cure his morphine addiction, Pemberton, who was also a chemist, created his own version, French wine coca, a homemade ripoff that would eventually evolve into Coca-Cola. But just a year later, disaster struck. Prohibition swept through the South, banning alcohol. Pemberton had to strip the wine and add something new. He replaced the alcohol with carbonated water and dumped in sugar to mask the bitterness. It was still loaded with coca leaves. Yes, cocaine, but it needed a new name. That's when Pemberton's bookkeeper, Frank Robinson, scribbled 2 words in elaborate script. Coca-Cola. Catchy, harmless sounding, but deeply misleading. The company would later deny that it ever contained cocaine, but the original formula absolutely did. And while most people couldn't care less about the cocaine back then, it was the marketing that would eventually change everything. But Pemberton wouldn't live to see it. Before John Pemberton died, he sold his formula to a driven workaholic named Asa Candler for just $2,300. But how Candler really took over is still shrouded in mystery. Some signatures on his ownership documents, later found to be forged. And then the early company records, burned, erased. Whatever really happened, Candler came out on top. By the 1890s, Candler was in full control, and he had a plan. Bury the streets in Coca-Cola, logos on buildings, barns, billboards. Anywhere your eyes could land, Coke would be there. Then came a genius move. Candler mailed out free coupons to pharmacy's best customers. Try it once, and you'll be hooked. Literally, Coke still contained addictive chemicals, but they stopped selling it as medicine. Why limit your market to the sick when you can target everyone? They rebranded it as a happy, feel-good refreshment, and sales exploded. Candler doubled down. Celebrities endorsed it, athletes drank it, Santa Claus held it. Suddenly, Coke wasn't just a drink, it was a symbol of joy, nostalgia, even childhood. They even pioneered sex sells. Attractive women became walking billboards, Coke in hand, smile on face, and it worked. Candler went further. He built a statistics department to track traffic and shopper behavior. Coke ads were placed with sniper precision. When radio and TV came, Coke was already there, flooding the airwaves. At first, Coke was sold exclusively at soda fountains. It saved them money. Just send the syrup, mix on site. Then 2 lawyers, Benjamin Thomas and Joseph Whitehead, had an idea. Let's bottle it. Candler scoffed, so he signed away full bottling rights for just $1. He thought it would flop. Instead, it changed everything. Bottled Coke went viral, before viral was even a thing. When World War II broke out, Sugar was rationed, but Coca-Cola claimed it was essential to the war effort. Yes, you heard that right. Coke said it was vital for national security, and the US government agreed. Behind that absurd decision was an army of lobbyists, studies funded by Coke, and one strategic move. They placed a Coca-Cola executive on the rationing board itself. While every other company was forced to cut back, Coca-Cola kept its sweet supply flowing. Then came a patriotic pledge. Every American soldier, anywhere in the world, would get a bottle of Coke for just 5 cents, no matter the cost, to the company. It was marketing genius disguised as patriotism. Coke didn't just ride the wave of war. It branded itself as the taste of home, of freedom, of morale. But behind the red and white curtain, a secret deal with the government helped Coke build 64 overseas bottling plants, most of them funded by taxpayers. Coke technicians were declared as essential as those repairing tanks, and with bottling plants worldwide, the drink reached not just soldiers, but civilians too. Everywhere US troops went, they brought Coca-Cola with them, and in the process, they introduced it to the world. The US military had accidentally become Coke's global sales force. While the war crippled industries across the globe, Coca-Cola expanded faster than ever, setting the stage for global dominance. Today, only 2 countries don't sell Coke, Cuba and North Korea. But here's the dark twist. While Coke was aligning with American troops, it was also supplying Nazi Germany. In Germany, Coca-Cola removed its American branding and placed its logo next to swastikas. The drink was even handed out at Hitler youth rallies. When Allied restrictions cut off Coke syrup to Germany, one man had a plan. Max Keith, head of Coke's German operations, improvised a new drink. As you know it today, Fanta. But what if I told you it was born in Nazi Germany, possibly made using forced labor, and that Coca-Cola still made millions off it? Coca-Cola says their biggest secret is the formula, locked away in a high-security vault. But here's the truth. It's not really a secret. The recipe, it's on Wikipedia. You could clone the formula, recreate the taste, and still fail. Because what makes Coke unstoppable isn't what's inside the bottle, it's everything outside of it. One day, a teacher asked to add fruit juice to the school's vending machine, but the principal said no. Why? Because Coca-Cola had an exclusive contract with the school. Coke paid the school $300,000 a year, or about $1 per student, to control what kids drank. This wasn't an isolated case. It was part of a master plan. Coca-Cola called it their cradle-to-grave strategy. Hook customers as young as possible, and you've got them for life. As one marketing chief put it, it's easier to get them when they're young and vulnerable. Some contracts even offered bonus payments to schools for selling more Coke to children. Underfunded schools were turned into vending machines for a billion-dollar brand. To dodge rules about advertising to kids, Coke made collectibles, dolls, toys, trucks, even board games, all for adults. Then there's Santa, the modern red-suited version we know today. Coke helped invent that image and tied it forever to their brand. In 1982, Coca-Cola bought Columbia Pictures, and just to flood films with product placement. Even after selling the studio, they kept paying for screen time. It's a legal loophole, a way to market to kids without ever breaking the rules. And it works. Studies show that even babies can recognize the Coca-Cola logo. But by the 1980s, cracks were forming. Alarming studies linked soda to obesity, diabetes, and long-term health damage. One study showed that just 1 soda a day increased a child's risk of obesity by 60%. So what did Coke do? The same thing Big Tobacco did. They cast doubt on the science. They funded studies claiming there was no proven link, without disclosing who paid for them. They lobbied hard against sugar taxes, donated to campaigns, pushed for weaker dietary guidelines. And while pushing sugar on kids, they sponsored athletes and Olympic events, a sugary drink with $1 billion smile, wrapped in medals, toys, and Santa Claus. But the real secret of Coca-Cola is how far they'll go to protect their empire. What if I told you Coca-Cola also had ties to racism, environmental disasters, and even murder? In 1999, children in Belgium began falling mysteriously ill after drinking Coca-Cola. Soon, France reported over 100 more cases. Coke was forced into a massive recall, but the company's response? Slow, dismissive, and many believed deeply irresponsible. In India, Coke was accused of contaminating groundwater with wastewater from its own bottling plants. The company admitted there was an issue, but promised to fix it. Yet independent tests later found toxic sludge still leaking into farmland, killing animals, destroying crops, ruining livelihoods. The Center for Science and Environment in New Delhi found that Coke and Pepsi contained pesticides that, if consumed over time, could lead to cancer, birth defects, and immune disorders. Coca-Cola operates bottling plants in some of the most drought-prone regions on Earth. Between 2000 and 2006, Mexico's president, formerly the head of Coca-Cola Mexico, granted the company 27 water concessions during a national water crisis. Many claim these deals allowed Coke to steal indigenous water, pollute rivers, and deepen water shortages. In Colombia, a campaign called Stop Killer Coke accused the company of something even darker, being linked to the murder of union workers at Coca-Cola bottling plants. Since 1989, dozens of unionized workers were killed. Others received threats. Some were kidnapped. In 2001, the International Labor Rights Fund sued Coca-Cola bottlers, alleging they had collaborated with death squads to silence union voices. A second lawsuit followed from Guatemala. Workers claimed they and their families were targeted for trying to unionize. Some earned just $15 for 15-hour shifts. There were accusations of torture, abductions, even murders. Coke denied any knowledge, arguing the plants were independently owned.
As many of you here today know, our company and our bottling partners have been accused of complicity in the murder of union members and of ongoing intimidation of union members and of the suppression of union activity in Colombia. The allegations are not true.
Whether or not Coca-Cola knew about the violence, they undeniably benefited from the destruction of labor unions. In parts of Latin America, Coke isn't seen as a soft drink, but as the sparkle of death. The deeper you dig, the more Coke's pristine image begins to crack. Asa Candler, the entrepreneur who once owned Coca-Cola, once said, "The most beautiful sight we see is the child at labor. The younger the boy, the more beautiful." Now, before we grab the pitchforks, it's worth remembering most giant companies with a long history have their own skeletons. That's not an excuse, just a fact. Business is brutal. Coca-Cola has done good too, donating millions, funding clean water projects, supporting disaster relief. Like most corporations, Coke isn't black or white, it's somewhere in the gray. But here's the twist. The biggest backlash Coca-Cola ever faced? It wasn't about pollution or corruption or even murder. It was about changing the taste. In 1933, Coca-Cola had the chance to buy Pepsi for just $50,000. They said no. Instead of buying them out, Coke sued Pepsi for using the word cola. They claimed it was trademark infringement, but the court disagreed, ruling cola was a generic term. Anyone could use it. What followed was war, a destructive price war. Both companies slashing prices, bleeding profits, locked in a race to the bottom. Did they make a secret deal to call a truce? Maybe. What we do know is the war ended. The new battlefield? Advertising. And Pepsi was about to fire the first real shot.
But that choice is up to you. Hey, you're the Pepsi generation. Girls are down and taste the thrill.
In 1975, Pepsi launched the Pepsi Challenge. 2 cups, no labels, one filled with Pepsi, the other with Coke.
Challenge has been asking thousands of people across the country to let their own taste decide. And the fact is, nationwide, more people prefer the taste of Pepsi over Coca-Cola. Pepsi.
Pepsi. Pepsi.
I like Pepsi a lot better.
Pepsi tastes better.
Tastes, that's the real thing. So take the Pepsi Challenge and let your taste decide.
People picked the one they liked best. The results, more people chose Pepsi. And Pepsi never let the world forget it. Coca-Cola publicly denied the results, but behind closed doors, they ran their own blind tests and found the same thing. Pepsi did taste better to most. Year after year, Coke's market share dropped. Pepsi's crept up, slowly, relentlessly. Coke tried everything, bigger ads, price cuts, celebrity endorsements, but nothing could stop the slow bleed. So Coca-Cola did the unthinkable. In secret, they began formulating a new version of Coke, one that beat both original Coke and Pepsi in blind taste tests. Over and over, it won. The data was clear. This was the future of Coca-Cola. Just before their 100-year anniversary, they pulled the plug. Classic Coke was gone.
There's never been a better taste. There's never been a better Coke. Introducing the greatest taste discovery in 100 years. Introducing the new taste of Coca-Cola. A taste that is Coke and everything a Coke means. A taste that's very familiar, yet totally new. A taste so good, so real, it couldn't be anything but a Coke.
And in its place, they launched New Coke.
Watch for it, try it, and enjoy the best tasting Coke ever.
It was supposed to be the greatest comeback in branding history. Instead, it became one of the biggest disasters in business history. The backlash was instant, brutal, emotional. People weren't just mad, they felt betrayed. This wasn't just a change in taste, it was a change in identity. The moment New Coke hit shelves, the chaos began. Every day, thousands of phone calls, letters, angry headlines. Customers were devastated, enraged. The outrage nobody expected. Coke believed the outrage would fade once people actually tasted New Coke. It didn't. It got worse. Hating New Coke became a cultural phenomenon. A Coca-Cola employee said, "We could have introduced the elixir of the gods. It wouldn't have mattered." Because the problem wasn't the taste, it was trust. Coca-Cola had become more than a drink. It was nostalgia, childhood, a constant in a world that kept changing. One furious customer wrote, "Changing Coke is like making the grass purple." Months passed, the backlash didn't fade. Finally, Coke admitted it. They'd made a massive mistake. July 11, 1985. Coca-Cola brought back the original formula, rebranded as Coca-Cola Classic. Overnight, the hate turned to love. Letters poured in again, this time full of gratitude. Sales exploded. One Coke executive joked, "You'd think we cured cancer." Some said it was a PR stunt. That Coke planned it all, just to deepen customer loyalty. But it wasn't. They genuinely thought people would prefer New Coke. They were wrong. They kept selling New Coke anyway, hoping people would come around. They didn't. New Coke quietly disappeared. And here's the kicker. In blind taste tests, people liked New Coke most. Pepsi was second. Classic Coke came last. But they still chose Classic Coke because Coke's power was never in the flavor. It was in the feeling, the story, the branding, the myth. Coca-Cola learned from the New Coke fiasco. It didn't stop innovating. It just got smarter about how it did it. In 1982, Coca-Cola introduced something bold. Diet Coke, the first major product since 1886. Not to use the original formula. But this wasn't just about cutting sugar. No, Diet Coke became a lifestyle. Cool, clean, modern, especially with women. Fast forward to 2005. Coca-Cola drops a new bombshell. Coke Zero.
Sure. Coca-Cola Zero. Try it to believe it.
Targeted at the younger crowd, mainly men. who didn't vibe with the word diet. Same promise, zero sugar, full Coke taste. But the real transformation was just getting started. Today, Coca-Cola operates in over 200 countries, owns more than 500 brands. It morphs into cultures, shapes to flavor, shifts with the trend. Coffee, mango, even vitamins. Whatever the world wants, Coke finds a way. Every single day, over 2 billion Coca-Cola products are consumed. Let that sink in. And yet, Coca-Cola still spends over $4 billion a year on advertising, even though 94% of the world already knows the logo. Because Coca-Cola isn't selling what's in the bottle, it's selling what's in your mind. It's selling you happiness, familiarity, that warm, fuzzy feeling wrapped in red and white. A friend, not a formula. But hey, the controversies, they never really left. Plastic waste, water rights, labor exploitation, obesity. The shadows are still there. And still, the world keeps reaching for an ice-cold Coke, because Coca-Cola doesn't just quench your thirst. It quenches your need to feel something. They're not selling you sugar water. They're selling you memories. And hey, what's a little controversy between friends, right? In the end, Coca-Cola's story isn't just about a soda. It's about identity, brand power, luck, and how perception can trump reality. And maybe, just maybe, that is the greatest lesson Coca-Cola has ever taught us. If this deep dive into Coca-Cola's dark history made you think, even for a second, turn on notifications right now, because we're just getting started. Every time new video comes, we peel back the curtain to reveal the truths behind the world's most iconic brands. Their controversies, their rise, their fall, and the untold stories the commercials never show you. What did you think about Coca-Cola's rise and fall? Was it genius, a mistake, or both? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And hey, which brand should we break down next? Apple? Nestle? Nike? Tesla? Tell us below, and your idea might just become our next documentary, because here, it's never just about the story, but it's about what's behind it. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the world of business, of marketing, and the twisted truths that shape our everyday lives.